What is up? Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Pierre, and we finally have Jason here after a long hiatus. It's good to have you back on the show. Hopefully, we can get back to our regularly scheduled program here shortly. I know that we've been a few weeks. It's been a crazy, crazy hectic time in between COVID and the wedding, and well, now we're actually getting to the holidays, so I might get kind of crazy again. But hopefully we'll be able to record more shows more consistently. So, and I'll definitely be watching more movies that are more new, more consistently now that the wedding's behind me, and I can focus on that and other things. So, but it's good to have you back, and it's good to have both of us on the show again and reviewing movies as we intended to do when we started this YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to be reviewing a new movie today, which I saw streaming at home on HBO Max, I believe, and you saw in the theaters, I think.
Yeah.
And that movie is Dune. So, it was one that I like I said, I didn't. We had a conversation prior to this, and I didn't know a whole lot about the story of Dune. I just knew it was a big, blockbuster supposed film that was coming out. So for me, going to the theater to see it wasn't, something I was dying to see, because it wasn't a movie that I was necessarily preemptively dying to see anyways, other than I knew that it had a lot of big names in it, a lot of big stars, and like a very big budget film that I'm assuming is going to lead to many, many sequels. It's just from my understanding of the film. But I'm going to let you take this one away if you don't mind. So I say we get into it. So tell us a little bit about Dune, Jason.
Yeah, okay, so Dune, it's a new film adaptation by, I'm going to mess up his name, I'm sure, but the filmmaker is Denis Villeneuve. That's probably wrong, but I know I can spell his name, I just can't pronounce it. But he's one of my favorite current filmmakers. He made Sicario, which is one of my favorite films. He made Arrival, which I liked a lot. He made Prisoners, a movie called Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal, which is a little less known, but really, really good. So he's a really good director. He made Blade Runner 2049, which I also really liked a lot. So he's definitely, like, all of his movies have gotten just bigger and bigger. I've liked them all. I don't want to say better and better, because Sicario is probably still my favorite, but they've definitely gotten bigger and they've remained good, in my opinion. And so this is an adaptation of Dune, I think the first part of the first book in the Frank Herbert book series, which I have not read. So I can't really comment on the book too much, except that I know that it's always been known as it's been kind of considered an unadaptable book. I do know that, because people have tried it before, and it always ends up disappointing people. Like I'm a big David Lynch fan, so I like his 1984 film version, which was a notorious flop back in the day. And most people consider it a bad adaptation of the book. I haven't read the book. I just know that I enjoy the movie. It's crazy and it doesn't make any sense, but it's got some amazing visuals and great score and some really wild moments in it. But even David Lynch himself refuses to even speak about the movie anymore. Like he disowns it, essentially. Anyway, and I know there was a miniseries version that came out in like the early 2000s that I did not watch. So I'm not a Dune expert, but I know a little bit about the story. I know that it is considered an extremely difficult book to adapt. And I think this director now had more of a budget and more time to work on it. I know David Lynch was being forced to condense. This movie is almost 3 hours long, and it's only half of the first book, from what I understand, where David Lynch was being made to, by the studio, condense the entire book within 2 hours. So it kind of makes sense that his version didn't necessarily make sense. But anyway, getting into this one, so it's a new adaptation, a part of the first book. The story is pretty complex, but it's essentially, it is a science fiction, of course. It involves this substance called spice, which is kind of the substance that drives everything in this world. It's like way, way, way in the future. And you need spice to do anything, pretty much. And there's a planet, Arrakis, I think, that is where the spice emanates from. Like that's where the largest concentration of it is in the galaxy. And there are two families basically that are warring over the control of the planet. And of course, like, it's kind of a story about colonization, because you've got the people who live on the planet that are, basically whichever family controls it is basically controlling those people. It's colonialism kind of commentary. So anyway, having not read the books or anything like that, but being a fan of science fiction, being a fan of the original movie, I really enjoyed this version. I thought, I love the David Lynch version, but it's not perfect. That's for sure. I think this is definitely a better film. It's probably a better adaptation, having not read the books. From what I've heard from other people, it's a better adaptation of the book. But yeah, it's just my kind of movie. It's huge, which is why I was shaking my head about watching it on a small screen. This movie, it was really, really fantastic to watch on a big screen with that sound system, blaring in your ears. So I really enjoyed that kind of just being caught up in the big screen, experience of it all. And it looks amazing. It's got a really good cast. Timothée Chalamet plays the role that Kyle MacLachlan played in the original. Paul Atreides. But it's got a huge cast, and it's clearly, like you said, it's only the beginning. It is already one sequel has been greenlit, because that wasn't a for sure thing when he made this movie. Doing part two of the other half of the first book was not a guarantee until it came out, and it was successful in its release. So it's already been greenlit. So now he can make the second part of the first book. But it's got a huge cast. It's got some really amazing action sequences. It's got really solid performances, good world building, atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. It looks great, sounds great. I can't speak on whether, what it doesn't do right from the books. I'm sure there are people who think it doesn't do things right from the books because that's always how it is. But all I know is I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely watch it again, and I'll definitely be in line for the second one. That's my take.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know me. I'm not as big of a science fiction guy as you are. So for me, it didn't really make that big of a difference whether I watch it at home or in theaters because it wasn't like one that I was extremely jazzed to see to begin with. It's not like I didn't hate it, obviously, but it's not like it's not like I'm gonna watch it at home and hate it, and then watch it in the theater and love it because of the sound was amplified. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things. And TVs are so big nowadays that, if you're watching on a 70-inch, 75-inch screen, it's, to me, it's fine. And I got a sound bar. I got surround sound in my house. So it's fine. I can hear the sound. Not as good as a theater, obviously, because that's like $1 million sound systems in there. But, but it's still going to be pretty nice. So, yeah, I didn't know a lot about Dune going into it. So like I said, I just kind of took it on its own merit. I didn't see the previous version, and what I know about that director, I probably maybe you wouldn't have saw the previous version of it.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about it going into it. The film itself, not knowing a whole lot of anything going into it, it is a little confusing. There are a lot of characters that they bring in or talk about, and a lot of places they talk about, and it's really hard to kind of like make sense of who they're talking about or what they're talking about, and so that was a little confusing and it's a little jarring for watching it, especially on the first time viewing. Maybe if you watch the second or third time, some of those conversations would make more sense, but I can only take it on the first time viewing, and that I stand on its own merit on that. So, but then, like I said, there's a big cast, there's a lot of people. Like you said, it deals a lot with colonialism, with, people kind of basically taking control over this planet and that sort of thing, which is all fine. But I also kind of felt like it took a little while for anything to really happen. You know what I mean? Because, it's a lot of talks about going to the planet and, this team of people going there. And there's a lot of talks about it, but they don't actually even make it to the planet. It's almost halfway through the film, and the film's like 3 hours long. So that was a little bit of a, me kind of like waiting for something to happen or just figure out what is even going on for a good portion of the film. And then, I don't know. Like I said, I thought it was decent. I didn't love it as much as you did, but I'm not as big of a sci-fi guy, I guess, if you will. It just reminded me of some other films, I guess. You know, it reminded me of actually maybe some other films that this guy has done. You know, just the visual, the look, the feel of it, like the Blade Runner film. It kind of had that same kind of tone to it a little bit, that futuristic
Yeah.
kind of feel to it. Maybe even Arrival a little bit. It's kind of still had
Yeah.
that same kind of look and graininess that those films had. And then just, you know, it just reminded me of like, you know, some of those Star Wars films, you know, that have come out in recent years. So it has that same kind of feel to it. And so, you know, it just didn't feel to me as original because I was watching it thinking like it reminded me of a bunch of other films that I personally probably enjoyed some of those a little more. But like I said, overall, I thought it was decent. You know, I would probably, you know, check the sequel out if it came out, or which it will come out, I guess, at this point. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would want to see at least where the story's going. You know, hopefully the second part will be a little bit faster in the pacing for myself. You know, they had to take an hour to introduce all the different factions and characters, I guess. But you know, hopefully the second part's a little bit faster in pace, and then you know, you know, might be more interesting to me at that point. So, like I said, so I you know, I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it though. You know, I just thought it was pretty good, and you know, I mean, I could see why somebody might enjoy that if you're really into sci-fi and you're really into visuals and loud, you know, crashing sounds and things of that nature. That somebody that might enjoy that kind of stuff. Sometimes I like that. Sometimes it's a little irritating. It wasn't. It was neither one or the other for me in this film. It just didn't do enough for me to like. I was like super jazzed to go see the next part of it. You know, so that was just me, I guess, if you will. But you know, like I said, overall, I think it did its job of what it was trying to do, and that was basically just introduce you to the characters, introduce you to the story, and then you know we'll get to the next part, and hopefully the next part picks up the pace a little bit, or it's going to be more action, and because there are a lot of villains in there, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of the villains coming to the forefront in the next part as well, because a lot of them are kind of in the background a little bit. So I'm sure in the next part we're going to see a little bit more about what they're all about also. So
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I haven't read the books, but since it's the second half of the book, then generally there's probably a little more climax type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so probably will be more action in the second one, but I can't say for sure.
yeah, I'm just assuming because there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a
Build
lot of
up
bad
in this
guys
one.
that we see
Yeah.
in this part, and you know a lot of them, you know, not a spoiler, make it through the film. You know what I mean? So so I'm assuming we're gonna see a lot more of some of those bad guys that we saw in the first part.
Yeah.
What the film's gonna be short on is probably some good guys. You know, if anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know that's the thing. I'm gonna be like, well, who are they gonna add for the next part? You know, so but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But like I said, you know, overall, like I said, I had a decent time. It wasn't a bad film or anything like that. Nothing I inherently would knock about it, other than maybe being a little bit long, and you know, the pacing taking a little bit longer than my liking to get to what it was that they were trying to get to. I mostly just watched the first hour, 45 minutes to an hour, just confused of what was going on, trying to figure everything out. So,
Yeah.
but that might have been partially intentional. But you know, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, anything else you wanted to add about Dune or?
Nope.
Cool. Well, what was the overall grade and face you would give Dune?
Oh, I would give it 4.5 out of 5. So it's an A minus. So it's a big old happy grin. I loved it.
Well, all right. Well, you know me. You know my default toe grade these days, as you say.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 5, which is just a smile and no teeth. But you know, like I said, I did like it. Like I said, it's a little confusing, and like I said, admittedly, sci-fi is not. If there's any genre that I'm not 100% always sold on, it's usually science fiction. That's just me. I'm just not a big, huge sci-fi guy. And that doesn't mean I don't ever like any science fiction films. There's plenty that I own and love, Matrix and all those other ones. But usually I lean more towards the action science fiction of it. This one definitely does have has enough action to keep you entertained for sure. But it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was action packed by any means. That's for sure. So
No.
at least
not packed anyway.
Yeah, at least not for at least the first I don't know, hour or so, anyways. So
Yeah, yeah.
things do get going a little bit better in the second half of the film. But yeah. But cool. Well, I mean, let us know down in the comments. Did you like Dune? Did you not like Dune? You know, are you looking forward to the sequel? Neither one of us read the book, so I'm not going to comment on whether it was true to the book. And like you kind of said beforehand, you know, no matter what, there's always going to be somebody that says that it wasn't true to the book. I mean, that's every film that I've ever seen that was an adaptation of the book. There's always going to be somebody that read the book and say, "Oh, well, they didn't do it like the book did," or "This wasn't," you know. And
Yeah.
I don't know. That's always been kind of, for me. I'm not a big book reader to begin with, but you know, for me, that's always like one of those things that I'm always curious about. I'm like, well, you know, would I even want to read the book for something that I thought was going to be made into a movie adaptation at some point, you know, because, and I know there's people that are like that. They'll go out and read, you know, a book because they hear about a movie coming out that's based on a book, and they'll go out and read the book. And I'm just like, I don't know if I would do that. I think that would give you a bad interpretation of what you're about to see. And also, you know, you might know some of the story already as well. So, you know, it's kind
Right.
of almost like
Yeah.
reading a screenplay beforehand. You know what I mean? You pretty much know what's going to happen. So I don't like putting myself
Yeah.
in those situations. So I'm not going to comment on whether that's good or not. But yeah,
Yeah.
let us know down in the comments if you liked it, didn't like it. As always, if you like the channel, we ask you like, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of the updates. And we will be back again with another show for you guys again real soon. We thank you for watching and hope you have a great day. Bye.
Bye.